In recent months, political tensions in North Carolina have boiled over, revealing an alarming trend. MAGA-aligned forces, led by a group of powerful Republicans, are resorting to extreme measures to reverse the results of elections they lost. The target? The North Carolina Supreme Court. The battle, however, isn't just about winning a court seat. It's about undermining democracy itself by attempting to disenfranchise thousands of North Carolina voters. The political stakes couldn't be higher. After a contentious election, Allison Riggs, a Democratic candidate for re-election to the North Carolina Supreme Court, emerged victorious, though only narrowly by 734 votes after all the absentee ballots, provisional votes, and mail-in ballots were counted. Yet, despite this clear result, her Republican challenger, Jefferson Griffin, refuses to concede defeat. Instead, Griffin is leading an aggressive and dangerous push to undermine the integrity of the election and disenfranchise North Carolinians, including those who voted for Riggs. Griffin's legal strategy isn't just about challenging the results through traditional recounts. He's going further by accusing thousands of voters of having improperly registered, sending threatening postcards to over 60,000 voters, and attempting to overturn the election by any means necessary. His tactics echo a broader, disturbing trend of MAGA-aligned forces attempting to throw out votes they don't like, using legal and political maneuvers that undermine the democratic process. This video explores the details of this election battle, the steps Griffin is taking to overturn the results, and the broader implications for democracy at the state and national levels. In particular, we'll examine the importance of state Supreme Courts, the lengths to which MAGA forces will go to retain power, and why it's critical for Democrats and pro-democracy advocates to remain vigilant and engaged in these battles. The election and Allison Riggs' narrow victory. Allison Riggs, a Democratic candidate for the North Carolina Supreme Court, won re-election by a mere 734 votes out of over 5 million cast. Despite a tough race, Riggs managed to maintain her position on the state's highest court. This was no easy feat. North Carolina, a key swing state, has witnessed increasing polarization in recent years, with the Republican Party gaining significant ground. The election results were not immediately clear on election night. Initially, Riggs' Republican challenger, Jefferson Griffin, held a lead of 10,000 votes, but as absentee ballots, provisional ballots, and mail-in ballots were counted, that lead began to dwindle. By the time the machine recount was complete, Riggs was ahead by just 734 votes. This small margin was enough to declare her the winner, but it wasn't enough for Griffin. Griffin's relentless campaign to overturn the election. Rather than accepting the results of the election, Griffin has decided to pursue every legal avenue available to him in an attempt to reverse the outcome. His primary tool has been the legal challenge process, starting with a machine recount and proceeding to demand a 3% audit of the ballots in all 100 counties of North Carolina. This audit, which involves reviewing a small sample of ballots by hand, is a standard procedure. However, Griffin's goal is not just to verify the results. He is hoping that the audit will reveal some irregularity or error that can be used as grounds for a larger, full-scale hand recount. Despite these recounts and audits being standard procedures, Griffin is using them to cast doubt on the legitimacy of the election results. He's not content with simply losing the election. Instead, he's waging a concerted effort to discredit the process entirely, challenging every step and every decision. This is where his tactics begin to get more extreme. Disenfranchising voters. Griffin's attack on 60,000 North Carolinians. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of Griffin's campaign to reverse the election results is his attempt to disenfranchise over 60,000 voters by claiming their registrations are invalid. These 60,000 voters are primarily people who registered before 2002, and under North Carolina law, voter registration cards from before that time may not contain certain details that are required today, like a social security number or a driver's license number. Griffin is targeting these voters, sending them postcards informing them that their voter registration is potentially invalid and that their votes might not count. This strategy is straight out of the voter suppression playbook, using intimidation and fear to suppress voter turnout, particularly in marginalized communities. While it is true that some of these registration cards may have clerical errors or may not meet the current technical requirements, it does not mean that the voters themselves are ineligible. People who registered before 2002, like Riggs' parents, who are among those targeted, are now being accused of not being legitimate voters, even though they followed the law at the time of their registration. By challenging the legitimacy of these voters, Griffin is undermining the integrity of the election, casting doubt on the votes of thousands of North Carolinians who, in good faith, participated in the democratic process. This isn't just an attempt to win a single seat on the state Supreme Court. It's an attack on the very foundation of our democracy. Griffin's legal challenges and their impact on North Carolina's democratic process. Griffin's legal strategy extends beyond attacking the votes of ordinary citizens. He is also targeting the integrity of the North Carolina Election Board, particularly one of its Democratic members, Siobhan Milan. Griffin claims that Milan's husband works at a law firm that represents Allison Riggs, and therefore, Milan should recuse herself from any further involvement in the case. While it is true that Milan's husband is employed at the law firm representing Riggs, this claim is being used as a pretext to remove Milan from the board. The law firm has a compliance wall in place to ensure there is no conflict of interest, and Milan herself has recused herself from any matters directly related to Riggs. However, Griffin's strategy is clear. He wants to eliminate any potential Democratic influence in the election process to give Republicans an advantage, no matter the cost to Democratic integrity. This move mirrors the broader MAGA strategy of attempting to control and manipulate election processes at the state level. By targeting the election board, Griffin is trying to create a political climate where partisan interests can override the will of the voters. The broader implications: why state Supreme Courts matter. While the national focus often rests on presidential elections, the real political battles in America are often fought and won at the state level. State Supreme Courts have immense power over the interpretation of state laws and constitutions. As the fight for reproductive rights, LGBTQ+ rights, and voting rights intensifies across the country, state Supreme Courts have become a critical battleground. In North Carolina, for instance, the state Supreme Court has been at the forefront of interpreting laws on issues like gerrymandering, voting rights, and abortion access. If Republicans succeed in flipping the court to a 6-1 majority, they will gain the ability to shape the state's future for decades to come, locking in partisan control over critical issues. It is therefore vital for Democrats and pro-democracy activists to focus not just on national elections, but also on local and state races. The future of progressive policies, and the future of democracy itself, depends on maintaining a fair and just system of governance at every level of government, from city councils to state legislatures to Supreme Courts. The ongoing battle over the North Carolina Supreme Court seat is a microcosm of the broader struggles for democracy unfolding across the country. Jefferson Griffin's relentless pursuit of a seat he lost, coupled with his attempts to disenfranchise tens of thousands of voters, highlights the lengths to which MAGA-aligned forces are willing to go to retain power. Their tactics are not just an attack on one election, they are an assault on the very idea of free and fair elections. The fight for justice in North Carolina is far from over. Riggs' narrow victory and Griffin's attempts to undermine the will of the people serve as a warning. The future of democracy depends on vigilance, participation, and engagement at every level. We cannot afford to take our eyes off state races or ignore the importance of state courts. Every vote counts, and every voice deserves to be heard. As we continue to watch the developments in North Carolina, we must remain steadfast in our commitment to protecting voting rights, preserving the integrity of our elections, and ensuring that our democratic system remains a beacon of fairness and justice for all. The battle for democracy is being fought not just in Washington, but in every courtroom, every state house, and every ballot box across the nation.